I wanted to show you guys a video about competition. I've just been seeing so many producers wanting to step up their game and just get better. I just thought it was a good time to watch something on competition, the right way to channel competition, and how competition can help you grow.
No matter who you are, we all have somebody in our lives that tells us competing is a terrible thing. It's not good to compete, honey. It's too much pressure when you compete, sweetheart. It's not good to compete because someone's got to lose. Anyone who ever said that, anybody who ever said that watches sports, that watches TV, that goes to restaurants and posts reviews on Yelp, anybody who says something like that, yet does that, they're contradicting themselves. Here's why. Everything great that ever happened is stemmed from competition. Everything. World peace does not exist. It just does not exist. Competition is one of the best things that you see in business, sports, anything. And by the way, typically those who make it to the highest ranks in sports, in business, in life, in entrepreneurship, in anything, they're typically the most competitive people you can ever meet in your life. So today I'm going to talk to you about 10 reasons why to compete. Not 10 benefits of competing, 10 reasons why to compete. I'll go through them fairly quickly. First one, I think competition brings out the best in you. When you're competing, especially if you go against somebody that is 10 times better than you, you all of a sudden like, wait a minute, I am not as good as I thought I was. I'm going to have to learn to fight. So I'm going to have to learn to pick my game up. I cannot believe how much faster he's than me. I cannot believe how better they are at customer service than us. I cannot believe how amazing they are with their systems and their, how are we going to compete with these guys? Oh my, we got to figure out a way to get better. So it brings out the best in you when you're competing. Number two, pain of losing is a great motivator. Pain of losing is one of the greatest motivators of a competitor. Let me explain something to you. The same people that say competition is not good for you, I guarantee you, if you sit down and have a private conversation with them and they're willing to be open, there was a very painful loss at some point of their lives. What could it be? They lost a girl to another man. They lost a man to another girl that hurt them. They lost a customer to somebody. They lost a game. Someone beat them in a public event at a sporting event. They didn't like that. They lost in a debate publicly. They completely stumbled once. And instead of getting up and wanting to compete again, which we've all had our embarrassing moments in our lives, they chose to let that define them. They chose to let that define them. Anybody that competes at the highest level, they had a very painful loss. Very painful loss. I remember, I can tell you I've won, in business for the last 15 years, I've won many, many times. But I can tell you the ones I remember vividly are my losses. And the ones that got me to step up, look at myself in the mirror, dust myself off and say, man, that hurt. That's what caused me to compete and get better and improve my business to the next level. Number three, competition keeps you young, believe it or not. Those who are engaged in the game, they're younger because they're not rusting out. Man, what if I burn out? I would definitely rather burn out than rust out. I'd definitely rather be in the game. I'm like, man, let's go, let's get them. Than sit around and just watch everything rust out and not be engaged in competing. I would rather see that happen any day of the week. So competition keeps you young. You got to stay young because in order to keep up with everybody else, you kind of are going to end up staying young. Number four, distracts you from your problems in your life. If you think about the last time you really dwelled into a problem so deep that it almost drove you nuts, I can tell you, at least for myself, anytime I go so deep into a problem that it makes me, what if this, why did he say this, why did he say this, why did that, it's when I have so much time on my hands and I'm not in the hunt for something. Because when you're in the hunt for something, when you're competing for something, when you're improving to do something, you don't have time to think about problems. You actually have a positive distraction. Everyone in life has distractions. Everybody. A kid could be a positive distraction to a business. A business could be a positive distraction to an ex-girlfriend. There are a lot of positive distractions. Competition is a positive distraction, and it takes you into the game so much that you don't have time to be thinking about all the problems and all the possibilities of the world coming to an end. You don't have time for that because you're engaged. You're in the arena competing. Number five, believe it or not, when you compete, you build new relationships. Now somebody would say, wait a minute, when you compete, you build new relationships? Yes. Let me explain to you in the simplest way. Let's just say you're a kid that plays tennis, hypothetically. So you start playing tennis with your dad, okay, and you're pretty good, married. You play with your dad, and you're actually pretty good. Then you start playing with your brother, and you're actually good. You beat your brother, and that's your older brother by 2 years. And you beat him in tennis. Okay, cool. So everybody so far you know is who? Family. Then your dad and your mom say, why don't we put you in a different place where you start competing and get some coaching? And then you start getting a coach, and then your backhand is good, your serve is good, your footwork's getting good. Then the coach says, you know what, I think we should put her in a league. And then you go into a league. You're not in high school. This year you're 12, 13 years old. You go into a league, and in the league, you start doing good. And then all of a sudden, you beat a couple guys. And then you get beat once by somebody that's very good. She is 10 times better than you. You're like, oh my gosh. And the next thing you know, you win one where you go into a tournament, and there's 30 girls that are now competing. You officially built new relationships with 30 new competitors, and you're one of them. Now you have new relationships. If you're in the business world, and say you're a social media consultant, you have to go to all the social media conventions. You have to go to all the social media events to find out what all the up-and-coming things are that's coming up. If you don't go to it, you're being left behind. You're not a competitor. What if you don't do it? If you don't do it, you know nothing about Snapchat. You know nothing about the new Anchor Music, all this stuff that's changed. You don't know about it. So you're not a competitor. You're being left behind. No one's going to hire you because you don't know what's up to date because you're not a competitor. But if you go to all these functions, all of a sudden people are going to know that you know what you're talking about. Now you're part of a committee of 10 other competitors that are fighting to get the same customers you're going for, but you're learning how to get better because you're amongst these other competitors. You build a lot of relationships if you do compete. Number 6, I was at a convention this past week in Palm Springs. Had a great time. There was a lot of energy. This place had 1,400 people at this convention in Palm Springs. And I watch everybody. And one of the things I pay very close attention to, there are those that are established, let's just say in business. But then there are those that are young and hungry and coming up in business, not age. They're young in business. They're not necessarily, they could be 42 years old, but they're young in business, right? And you see the look on their eyes, this competitor, and you see somebody that's established, their eyes are a little droopy. They've lost the fire, right? And this other person's coming up and they're trying to do whatever they can, but they keep losing, but they're not giving up. Let me tell you something. These guys earn a lot of respect. They get respect from everybody. Because it's kind of like in school when you fight somebody and you beat this person up, but this person swings back every time you fight him. Even you beat him. You don't want to fight this person next time because, like, listen, at least this person I fight, he never swings. This person I fight, he won't stop swinging until I kick his butt, and he typically gets me a couple times. I don't want to fight this guy. Gain respect, even though this person lost. There's a lot of respect for a competitor. There's a lot of respect for somebody that goes to the last minute and fights till the very last minute, even if they lose. In sports, you hear an athlete saying, you know, these guys were a tough person we faced. This was not an easy one. They fought till the very last minute. And you'll see sometime where there's, these guys gave up after the first game because they lost by 28 points. That's no respect. You don't gain respect with that. Number 7. Number 7 is when you're a competitor, one of the reasons when you compete, your brain gets wired in improvement mode. Your brain gets wired in improvement mode. Let's just say you run a real estate business and you lost one of your clients and they went and changed their listing and put it with another guy. Why? And you found that the reason why they did with this other guy is because that guy has 5 people that are passing out flyers, and that guy is got people that are doing all these other marketing for him, and he's got it on 5 different websites, and he's putting on Craigslist, and you didn't do that. Well, guess what? If you want to compete with this guy to not lose future listings, you better improve. If you don't, get out of the real estate business. You're going to lose them every single time. If you run a coffee shop, and there's a coffee shop across the street, customers used to come to you. Now they're no longer coming to you. They're going across the street. That customer kept telling you, hey, with this coffee, why don't you have some sweet for us to have? And you said, no, our specialty is mainly coffee. Now you lost that business that's going across the street. Now you may want to consider having some kind of sweets. You know, hey, can you put some chairs outside so we can sit outside? I don't want to sit inside. The weather's sometimes good. I just want to sit outside. No, we're only an inside cafe. You got to figure out a way to go a little bit outside because you got to figure out ways to improve or you're going to lose the customers to the guys across the street. When you are a competitor, you're constantly going to be in the mode of improvement because someone's constantly going to be beating you. And by the way, to those of you that are watching this, that you're not choosing to be competitive, guess what? When businesses compete, guess who it serves? You and I. When restaurants compete, it serves you and I. When movie theaters compete, it serves you and I. When universities compete, it serves you and I because they're trying to make it better. I was at a USC meeting with the president of USC. We're sitting there. He invited 13 different people at this table. We're sitting there having lunch together, and he starts talking about how their goal is to raise $6 billion. And we ask, what are you raising $6 billion for? He says, we're building a cafeteria. It's a $1.5 billion project, and we're building a cafeteria identical from the Harry Potter movie. No way. Yes. Why? Because they want their kids to want to go to USC, because these kids are accustomed to watching Harry Potter. They want to be able to say, our cafeteria is cool, because they're listening. Because the one school he mentioned the entire time we were sitting there was who? Harvard. USC wants to compete with Harvard. Think about that. That's impressive. If I got kids that want to go to a school and I know a guy like that is competing against Harvard, I'm interested in that. Because they want to make the school better for our kids. Competition. Number 8, fulfillment. There's a lot of excitement and fulfillment when you compete. There's certain excitement you get when you compete. I can't describe it to you. When people are in the arena competing, there's a certain sense of fulfillment. There's a lot of people right now say, did you see that picture with Michael Phelps? He's swimming and the other guy's looking at him. Man, that guy's a loser. That's why you focus on winners. I'm sorry. He's in the Olympics. He made it to the Olympics. That's pretty epic. I shared a picture of myself. But that guy's in the Olympics. He's fulfilled, man. He's going to say I was an Olympian. Now, obviously, there's a very small community of great ones. But at least he went and he made it to compete with the great one, even though the world's going to say he lost. To his family, he's an Olympian. For his kids, he's always going to say, Daddy was an Olympian. Daddy was an Olympian. Daddy was an Olympian. The girl, the gymnast that lost to the other girl who's just an absolute beast by 2 points, which is just incredible points. She's going to be an Olympian for the rest. Her kids are going to be very proud to have mommy be the girl that she is. Fulfillment. There's a lot of fulfillment when you compete. Number 9. When you compete, you attract a lot of other opportunities. I was having a meeting with our staff and I said, listen, if you work at our home office and you work with me and you're competitive and you're all about improving, pushing a little bit more than the rest, you're guaranteed to move up if you work with me. Because to me, competitive people are very valuable. Because they always want to move up. They always want to make things better. They always want to figure out ways to do it faster or better. I love having people on the team that are like that. I love having people that are coming. If they're not, I simply say, we're not the company for you. But if you are, we are the company for you. So other opportunities come from people like this. Other opportunities come out of nowhere from people like this. I was talking to one of our guys. We were driving to Fort Worth today, me and Tikrin, and he started asking me questions about himself and all this other. So I said, listen, let's face it, when you first got started with me, I was about to fire you. He says, I remember that. I said, but there's one thing that you got. You respond. I said, you respond. I gave you one challenge and it was your last challenge. In my mind, I had already given up on you. But I said, I was so impressed with the way you came back. And you proved me wrong. And you came in, boom, you responded. It showed me you're a competitor. You want to be one of the best. His department, the company, is probably doing better than any other departments in the company because he's competitive. Okay? So he got other opportunities. He went from just having a regular position to now having a bigger position with the company that's involved in the leadership types of meetings that we have ourselves, where he's going and visiting all these other offices across the country. And last but not least, if you choose to compete, one of the reasons to compete, you eventually, now competitors are workers, just to keep in mind. I'm not saying you want to compete but you don't want to work. If you choose to compete, one of the reasons to compete, you eventually end up beating 95% of your competitors. 95% of your competitors, you end up beating. 95% of your competitors, you end up beating. If you keep consistently wanting to compete. Anybody that at one point was your competitor, if you constantly keep competing, eventually you'll find yourself only competing with the 5%. And the 5%, to be the best of the 5% is a dog fight. It's hours. It's even improving faster. It's being able to recruit the right talent, being part of the right team, and having a vision on where you're going, being clear on, then it's a real dog fight.
Wild. This is something I like to talk about because one thing in production, there is a competitive energy, especially with all the beat battles happening nowadays. Getting placements, beat battles, all that kind of stuff, there's a competitiveness to it. When I feel like I want to get better, like if I hear someone's track and I'm like, oh man, that shit just fires me up. I wish my stuff was that good or whatever. What that can do for you is it could light a fire inside you. And that fire, you can channel that into creating your absolute best work. What he's saying in this video is Competitive energy is a good thing for you to use to thrive. Don't use it to get stuck or to give yourself an excuse why you can't do it. I really like his example, given all these reasons why it is a good idea to compete and why it is a good idea to ignite that competitive spirit. It can make you so much better. Whatever you feel, whether it's competition or some kind of negative energy or whatever it is, when you feel those feelings inside you and you decide to lean into it, take your awareness and move it into that so-called negative emotion, competition, whatever it is, you can turn it from a negative emotion into channeling it to do something that you want to do. It's a gift of energy. I've talked about this in a lot of my streams. When you feel that negative emotion or whatever it is, lean into it instead of avoiding it, embrace it, because that will convert into power. In that sense, there really are no ups and downs. When you understand that every moment is just a moment where energy is present, you can use that energy to channel it into anything you want in your life.
DECAP.